In Delta State, the recent passing of one of its revered monarchs, His Royal Majesty Joseph Chike Edozien, the 13th Asagba of Asaba, has left the community in mourning. Business activities in Asaba, Delta State capital, and its environs were crippled following the official announcement of the death of the Asagba of Asaba. Schools, shops, and other business concerns were shut down even as the movement in and out of Asaba, including tricycles and motorcycles, were restricted for the announcement of the death of the 13th Asagba of Asaba. Arise correspondent Jemima Boloko brings us the official announcement from the palace.
The people of Asaba are still mourning the loss of their revered traditional king, His Royal Majesty Professor Joseph Chike Edozien, who served as the Asagba of Asaba in Delta State. And here was the official announcement of his passage by the traditional authorities.
He was aged 100 years and the 13th Asaba of Asaba, who ascended the throne as the Asaba of Asaba on 1st July 1991. May his gentle soul rest in the bosom of the Lord. His Royal Majesty the Asaba of Asaba, by July 28 this year, will be 100 years, but he has already exceeded 7 months in the last year. So even 99 and a half years not allowed. Having exceeded 6 months in the new year, that will make him take him to the next age. It's right to say that he died at the age of 100 years.
Following the official confirmation of the death of the Asaba of Asaba, all forms of movement into and from Asaba town, including tricycles, motorcycles, were then restricted, with schools, shops, and businesses also shut down. The Bogonogo and Oko markets, among others, had earlier been told not to open in preparation for the announcement. Born on July 28, 1925, the Asaba died a few months before his 100th birthday anniversary. He played a crucial role in advancing the cultural heritage and development of the Asaba community, serving as a custodian of tradition and leader involved in various initiatives aimed at improving his subjects' well-being and preserving their cultural identity.
Please cover your head.
Before his passing, the monarch had a distinguished educational background, earning a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Ibadan and pursuing a postgraduate studies abroad. He obtained a master's degree in economics from the University of Manchester, United Kingdom, and a doctorate in economics from the University of London, also in the United Kingdom. His academic achievements and expertise in economics were fundamental to his later roles in academia.
With his position as a professor, he brought in a lot of development into Asaba. He caused some people to come in to at least bring in ideas that will help Asaba to stand. I just wish that his legacy, which is very, 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 very high for Asaba development, will be maintained.
Asagba Professor Joseph Chike Edozien was a man of outstanding achievements in life. He was a man of immense accomplishments in academia, in the traditional rulership institution, in intellectualism, in governance.
Professor Chike Edozien is a man of many dimensions. It's well known that until his transition, he was the oldest surviving professor and a well-known academician nationally and internationally. He always believed that the traditional kingships were the secret for enhancing the well-being of our country.
Was an extraordinary man and lived an extraordinary life. I'm most privileged to have known him and known him at very close range.
My father was an extraordinary man. And he lived 100 years of history. And in that history, he lived a life that was exemplary, impactful, a life of integrity and leadership. And what I think I'm the most proud of is that he truly was someone that we should look up to in terms of the focus on actually accomplishment.
Before his demise, Professor Chike Edozian had granted an exclusive interview with Arise, reflecting on his journey leading up to his near centenary age. A major challenge of Obi Edozian's tenure as the Asaba of Asaba was the balancing of rapid development and modernization of traditional norms and institutions, including the preservation of the positive aspects and moderating influence of traditional values. Several ongoing initiatives such as the Asaba's Permanent Palace, Civic Center, and the documentation of the town's traditional laws and customs sought to balance those concerns. Jemima Boloko, Arise News, Asaba, Delta.
Joining us now as we take a look at the legacy of the Asagba of Asaba is Chike Ogeah, an indigene of Asaba in Delta State. Good morning, Chike, and welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Thank you,
Chike, good to see you on the show.
This is definitely not a good time for anybody, you know. Ruben, I want to crave your indulgence to please just give me a minute to pay my last respects to my very good friend, Bimbola Ogubanjo. That death was a death that particularly touched me. This is a friend I've had for over 40 years, and if you know him as a human being, he's one of the most exceptional human beings. I saw him, I spoke with him just that week, and it's been really terrible. Of course, he was in that crash with Herbert Ogeah and his family, which Herbert is also a friend of mine, and his youngest son, I think it was his first son who was in that crash, is very good friends with my youngest son. Apparently they had spoken because my son lives in London, and they were supposed to meet up, you know, immediately he came back from America. When I spoke to my son, he was shattered all through the week. So it's been a real terrible time. And of course, now culminating in the death of such a great man as the Asagba of Asaba, who obviously, you know, is my royal monarch, and a very distinguished one at that. The Asagba of Asaba is what legends are made of. If you know anything about him, you will know that this is a man, of course, he lived for 100 years, you know, and that tells you with a trail of accomplishments in the academia, in even in life, you know, he was a role model. You could even call him a king that was a statesman. Even my father, my late father, Dr. Ogeah, you know, saw him as a mentor, because of course they both are in the same profession, and he was a man I grew up knowing and seeing in the house. I'd been close to him all this time. In the last 1 year, I haven't been available really in Nigeria because I've had issues that have been taking me up and down and all of that. So I haven't really seen him in the last 1 year, and that was particularly painful to me, because we were indeed looking forward to having grand celebrations for his 100th birthday, which I'm aware that it was being planned, you know, from the palace and all of that. Asaba, they used to call it the sleepy town by the banks of the Niger. But of course, you should know that by now, the town has been greatly modernized. It's now the capital of Delta State. And that is why the pivotal role the Asaba played over time, it was there for all to see. He came in at a time when, I think about 1991, when he took up the stool of his forefathers, when we just became the capital of Delta State. So there was this mix of modernity and tradition, which he had to continuously, balance exactly. And he did a great thing about it. He was a great reformer. That's one of the things he did. Even a lot of our traditions that were supposed to, became outdated, and, especially things to do with women. He helped with the emancipation of women. Women used to, I remember when women lose their husbands, there were certain rights that they used to go through and all of that. Those things were almost abhorrent. He, against, you can imagine when you have such enhanced traditions, he fought all those things, pulled down all those strongholds. I think he was the first king that actually made a woman a chief in the palace. I think we have a couple of women now, maybe 4 or 5, that are actually Olinzeles, as we call them, which are the palace chiefs. He also did that. So he did a lot of things. I think he was the first Nigerian chemical pathologist. It's there in history, his records. He was instrumental to, I think, the formation of both University of Benin and the University of Nsukka. Yes, he wasn't around in the period of the Civil War, and because typical of Asaba people, we are very proud people who appreciate our roots, who appreciate our origins. And obviously, I think he had very strong views about what was going on, which made him a target. And, he had to leave and all of that. But shortly after that, when he came back, I think he was somewhere in North Carolina, where he became a professor as well. And he was there with his family, and he continued his life. His wife, my dear auntie, she's of Yoruba origin. She's the granddaughter of the revered Herbert Macaulay. And if you go to Asaba and you see her holding court, you won't know. But anyway, one thing that was clear was that the golden generation, as we called most of those men, they were in maybe between their 90s and 100 now. Most of them have gone. The last of them, I think, is the one we're about to celebrate in a couple of weeks or so. That is Chief Philip Asiodu. He's turning 90. But those were great men from Asaba. You had them, the likes of Chike Digbe, the leader. They were all over. They were in the academia. Professor Iweze, Professor Ogeah, Professor Nicholas Azinge, even to the younger generations. I'm sure you know about Epiphany Azinge, the younger one. So but those are even, like I said, the succeeding generation. The older Olisa Chukura. We had so many of those men, and they were so impactful. And what they did was that not only did they love their town, they also modernized their town, and they also did great things, all over the world. Of course, in business, we had the biggest Iroko ever, maybe in Nigeria, Idea Haba. Everybody knows him, Chief Sonny Odogu, And that was the generation of the men that were in that came from that town. So a lot of us, with the younger and succeeding generation, we pray that we were able to step into those massive shoes of those men.
What do you have to say about the example of people like the Asagba, who excelled in their professions, distinguished academic? He became a professor in 1961.
Yes.
I'm not too sure you were born there.
I was born in
1961.
Yes.
Okay, you're that old?
I'm that old. You think I'm a young man like you?
Anyway, he became a professor in 1961.
Yes.
And he was so distinguished, wrote many scholarly papers.
Yes.
And then from that height, he still thought it was important. Not necessarily because he's a direct descendant of the founder of Asaba, but because he wanted to give back to his community.
Yes.
But these days, you see some of these traditional rulers, they just think it's a position of entitlement. What do you have to say about that example? Going to serve your people.
Well, you see, that's the thing I told you about that, about Asaba as a town. The men there are not just distinguished men with a keen eye for history, but they are men that, like I said to you, I think were born to impact. Professor Edozian, like you know, he was actually in America when he got the score. The way the kingship in Asaba goes is that it goes from one Ebo, which is like a village. There are 5 of them. It's not hereditary like it is in some places. So it goes from one village to the other. So when it was the time of his village, and of course there will be certain families there, by history, by progeny that will be poised for it. The selection is not usually rancorous. They will sit down, the obese, and the elders, and they will sit down, they will talk. And it was clear that the people were looking at him. I prayed because my father was very involved in that process. I remember that was in about 1991. So the run up to it was about 88, 89, 91. And 1991, yes, like I said. And I don't think it was really an attractive thing for him. But I think by the time he had spoken to his people and he realized people like Chief Sonny Odogu, they were in the forefront of that, Chief Philip Asiodu, like I told you, and they all got together with him and they spoke to him. And he answered the call. And I don't think he ever regretted it. He didn't regret it. Asaba didn't regret it because he came in and like I said, he started modernizing our institutions, started modernizing the town, even because he's a very well-traveled man. So, he could add that touch of modernity even while preserving the basic culture and traditions of the people. And I think he did that beautifully. And though, like I said, we were looking forward to this massive celebration for his 100th birthday, well, I think we will still celebrate.
Yeah, I
was
going to come to that because one of the OBs had said that in that report by Jemima, that he had lived beyond 99 and 6 months, or 7 months, so that they would still go ahead to honor him as a as a 100-year-old who had lived to 100 years old. What are the plans? I know they've mentioned that we would get announcements in a few days, but there must still be plans as to how to, one, preserve his legacy. You've talked so much about it and richly, just giving us a little insight into the richness of his life. But what are some of the plans for him? And also to ensure that some of his legacies, including the modernity he brought to that stool, what are some of those legacies that ought to be preserved and plans for, following the announcement?
Well, like we keep happening, tradition is, entrenched and the entrenched values of the people. So what I know in terms of the plans is that obviously the elders, the different palace chiefs, the Olinzele in council, those are the chiefs in council, the OBs, who are like the OBs of the different, areas, they all will sit down, they will come together, and there will be, I'm sure, some very extensive deliberations where they will set out, the plans for this funeral. And when all that is worked out, I think things like going to inform maybe even the president, they will have distinguished visitors from abroad. He's friends with professors from all over, those that are still alive, those that their families are still alive, statesmen, ex-presidents, and all of that. So I guess it's going to be something really big. But to say that these are the plans for it now, no, not yet. They have to sit down and then get a date and all that. And I'm sure once all that is done, it will be set out to you. I'm aware that in consonance with our tradition, the Anochendo, which is like a regent, has been appointed, who I think is his second son, Joseph, and he's going to hold, the fourth for as long as this whole processes are done, like I said to you, and then it goes to the next village, and they will now determine, who the next Asagba will be. And we expect a smooth transition in all of this. Yes.
Well, Chike Ogeah, our condolences.
Thank you.
On the passing of your friends and also of your traditional monarch, the Asagba of Asaba. And I look forward to seeing you more on set, particularly on This Day Live, the Sunday talk show.
You knew I took a rain check on that. Like I told you, I had things to take care of. Thank you very much.